Welcome everybody to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host for the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. Oh yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I am super duper excited to introduce Heather Hutchison, my first interview here for December 2021, which is the last month of the year. Whoa. What a way to end this year with an amazing interview here that I'm super duper excited. Heather, thank you so much for coming to my show. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So Heather, I'm going to ask you I'm going to give you three keywords. And within these three keywords, you could either take your time to respond which word you would like to choose, why you chose this keyword, and we can talk from there. And just feel free to be as expressive as you'd like. We have a very diverse audience here.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. So the three words here are the first word is going to be blind. The second word is music. And the third word is depression.
I think I would choose music because blindness and depression are certainly parts of my identity, but I think music it runs through me deeper than any of those things, like it's all of me. It flows in my blood.
So tell me about your musical journey. When did this begin and how did it begin?
I don't know that there was really ever a time that I wasn't involved in music because I can remember like barely being able to walk and carrying this like giant tape recorder around with me everywhere, just like recording made up songs and things like that. And, I always wanted to be a singer. My brother told me he'd lend me $100 when I was 6 years old to record an album, which I later found out obviously isn't enough to record an album. Um, but I think as things progressed and I got into, feeling more isolated in my early teen years, I started taking music more seriously and I would sit down at the piano and make sense of the thoughts that were in my head. And I entered one of my first songs in a competition, and during the finals of that competition, a producer came up to me backstage. He'd been on the panel of judges for the competition, and he was like, "Hey, I really liked your song. We should talk about recording an album together." And I never really thought it would happen. I was like flattered, but like, sure, yeah, okay, whatever. And 3 weeks later, we were in the recording studio recording my first album. So that came out when I was 16, and I've released two other ones since then. And there's actually a fourth one that we are just finishing work on this week. So that's exciting.
And Heather, did you get professional lessons? How did you learn to play the piano? Was that just on your own?
No, I actually did get professional lessons first when I was really young as part of my physical therapy, actually.
Wow.
Um, yeah, but I hated it initially. Like, I was a really bad student. I didn't want to play what was like in my books. I would sit and, make up my own songs or play things that I'd heard by ear on the radio, things like that. And then I stopped taking piano lessons not long after I started, really. And then in my early teens, when I started taking songwriting more seriously, I went back to piano lessons for a couple of years because I was like, well, I need to learn to accompany myself if I'm going to, sing my songs in public.
How exciting. That's super exciting. So what was the first song that you completely learned on your own?
Oh my gosh. Like a cover song?
Well, yeah, any song.
Um, Honestly, probably something by like Mariah Carey when I was really young because my mom listened to a lot of her music. So probably something like that. I can't
And did you
remember
also
for
sing?
sure.
You also sang, you said, or were you playing the piano and singing, or just piano,
Playing and singing, yeah.
playing and singing? Wow, how incredible. And I'm just curious, you're blind, correct?
Yes.
So were you born blind or did it happen later in life?
Yeah, I was blind, born blind from, yeah.
And so learning music blind, I can't fully imagine, but I can try to imagine that perhaps maybe you're feeling music more than really knowing music. Does that make sense? Am I making sense there?
Yeah, I think what it is maybe I have more of a propensity for like memory because I'm not seeing visual things everywhere and signs and all that kind of thing. I have to remember things that I've learned, maybe more so than somebody else who would just glance at a sign or whatever and remember. So I think probably that helped with being able to learn music by ear and then retaining that music.
Do you ever dream the music?
Dream of,
Do you
yeah,
hear it? Yeah, would you do you
yeah,
actually hear it or feel your fingers playing the your piano or anything like that?
totally, yes. Quite often. I've actually written like entire songs in dreams. Like I remember um writing, I was really struggling with songwriter's block and I wanted to, on my third album, I didn't know what to say and I actually like wrote an entire song in a dream one night and woke up and like wrote it down because I hadn't been like writing for probably a couple years, and then this song kind of came to me and then other songs came after it, so it was, yeah, totally.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really incredible. I mean, I guess the reason I asked about the dream thing is because I have a yeah, I've got a few disabilities myself, and one of them I'm hard of hearing, and sometimes I'm able to pick something up when I'm learning the guitar or just remember like a note or yeah, this is the one chord that's missing. And it
Yeah,
just kind of it just it's so interesting how the brain or the mind or however you want to say it, it actually completes things for you when you're not in your waking state.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool.
It is cool. It's super
Yeah.
duper cool.
Like I can play things in my dreams that I'm like, wow, that was like really awesome. I If only I could play that in real life. That sounded great.
And then do you usually when you wake up are you like, okay, I got to do this right now before I forget?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I will forget.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, throughout the day, it's like, or you think you won't forget. Like sometimes I'll have a great idea for a song and I'm like, oh, I should really write this down. But I'm lazy and I'm like, no, I'll totally remember it in five
And then you
minutes
end
and
up
then it's
forgetting.
gone.
So what where are you at right now with your musical career?
So right now we are just finishing up this week the fourth album. We're finishing up the mixes right now, and it's actually kind of cool because I released a book a couple months back, my memoir called Holding On by Letting Go. And this book or this album, we kind of joke that people call it Holding On by Letting Go the musical because it's kind of this, almost, it takes the book and almost translates it into music, so it's kind of like this soundtrack to the book. So it's cool. It's really exciting to have that to kind of go hand in hand with the book.
Heather, I'm really curious to hear you play. Am I allowed to ask you this, or is this putting you in the spot
What?
to hear you perform something, a quick snippet?
Sure, I can sing something like a cappella. I
Yeah, I
don't
would
have
love
like a
to.
piano or anything nearby, but
Sure, I would I would love to. This would be amazing. Thank you.
yeah, let me think. I'll do maybe one of the songs off my last album because I feel like if I try to do one of the new ones, I'll probably like forget the
Sure.
lyrics or something in the middle of
However you're
it.
comfortable. Nope, let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm awakened by your teardrops in the shadow light of dawn. We don't know where I. Oh shit! I forgot the
No, it's
words.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Keep going. Keep
I
going.
um. How does it go? I'm awakened by your teardrops in the shadow light of dawn. With Oh my gosh,
That's fine,
I'm
Heather.
totally. It's like I'm
No,
so busy with the newer songs,
no
or
worries. That was more than that was an angel singing. Thank you so much. That was
I can't believe I forgot the words to my own song.
not even it happens, but you know what? That was enough for me to get a touch of your angelic voice. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
So you started singing at 16, correct?
Um, I started, yeah, professionally singing at 16.
And what keeps you motivated? What keeps you going with your singing career? Because it's challenging, especially right now with the pandemic. How are you doing? How are you doing with the pandemic? Are you able to go out and perform anywhere? Do you want to perform in public? What are your goals with it?
Yeah, it's actually been really tough for a lot of well, probably all musicians. For
Oh yeah,
me, I was actually kind of taking a break right before COVID, so it wasn't actually that shocking for me. I was kind of getting burnt out. I was playing a lot of shows that like I wasn't really um I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. And I was like, you know what? This isn't fair to me and it's not fair to the audiences who are coming to watch. So I'm going to take some time off. So that actually kind of worked out for me. And it was a bit of a blessing in disguise in that way, COVID, because um, it gave me kind of the space I needed, I guess, away from performing publicly and now that things are starting to open back up again, we're finishing up this fourth album. I kind of feel ready to get back out there. So
How would you compare this new album with your previous albums?
it's very different. It's kind of like the album that I always wanted to record and haven't in a way because I think there was just like no holds barred. Like I just basically went for it because I think so much has changed with the recording process, with technology and with COVID as well. There's not this getting together with a bunch of musicians in a studio and recording an album anymore, which is unfortunate, but it also time is money in the studio, so you're constantly watching the clock and things like that. So when time's not really as important, sometimes you can get more creative. And I just really, I don't know, in a way it's almost like going back to my roots, going back to like my first album, just in a more mature way, I guess. But yeah, it's really cool to just like do really whatever I wanted with the music, whatever I feel is
So
is
with your previous
necessary.
albums, Heather, you weren't, it was kind of, really wasn't up to you as far as what you wanted to sing. It was up to other people and you kind of just went with it. Is that what you're saying?
No, it was up to me what I wanted to sing. Like I've always recorded my own songs that I wrote, but I think with there were always, limits to because you run out of money, you run out of time, things like that. So there was always, I think this project was just a bit less or a bit more limitless, I guess.
And what about the Limitless? What about it? So it's basically like less stress, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just taking my time, if I want a certain part, I can sit there and play it as many times as I want to get exactly what I want, and I'm not having to like watch the clock all the time going, well, we're about to run out of time. And yeah, so it's kind of cool that way, as sad as it is that we don't have like the camaraderie of getting together with a bunch of musicians in the studio, because I really loved that. But there are definitely advantages and disadvantages to both ways.
Oh yes, definitely. And I can imagine you miss being with the group as well. The whole
Yeah,
the hype, the energy, everybody getting hyper and crazy together,
yeah, totally. It's a totally different type of energy.
and especially when you're recording or when you're performing. Have you been performing online?
Um, I have during the pandemic. I know a lot of my friends were, and for me, it was not a good time because I was actually hospitalized for psychiatric care during like at the beginning of COVID. So for
Hmm.
me, I wasn't performing online. I have in the past actually before COVID, but I didn't do any shows online during COVID because it was just literally like I was trying to make it. I was living hour to hour, day to day kind of thing. So just trying to make it to the next hour.
And that was the whole depression part.
Yes.
And how did you get out of the depression?
Well, I think it was really something that actually happened to me in the hospital. I was lying awake one night, I couldn't sleep, and the air ambulance came bringing a critically ill or injured patient to this bigger hospital for treatment. And as soon as they got there, they called a code blue. And I just remember lying in bed thinking about this person's family and thinking, like, my God, they must be having one of the worst nights of their lives. And I started thinking about my own loved ones and thinking, well, how can I feel so much empathy towards this patient's loved ones while knowing the decision I want to make will devastate my own. And then I started thinking about the patient themselves and thinking, wow, what a crazy juxtaposition. Like, this person's fighting to live here and I'm fighting to die, and I have a choice. So I can choose to make something positive out of this really difficult situation. I can choose to be an active participant in my treatment plan so I can get well enough to leave the hospital and go home and write that book and share my story and write those songs so that hopefully my story can make somebody else feel a little less alone with their story, because I think it's a really lonely place to be.
It is, and I definitely feel less alone listening to your story. I had similar issue when I was over 20 years ago. When I was in my 20s, I also had a very similar experience where I had a suicide attempt and was in 5150 with people who were also trying to commit suicide or had attempted to, and it saddened me thinking the same thing. It's really interesting that we share the similarity. I think definitely people come together to motivate other people, and
Yes.
you came into my life to definitely help my or our audience, people that are listening and reading and viewing, to just help empower people, especially right now. Like the pandemic is really bringing a lot of people down, and
Yeah.
I mean, rightfully so. I mean, you're used to going out and getting fresh air, and then we're just locked up, and yeah, it can be a little heavy. But wow, it's really empowering as well. Just as a person, as a human being, for you to just come out of it. And would you say, did music help you with this, or did you also hit a depression with music?
Yeah, I wasn't playing any music at the time. I don't know, there was just no joy in doing anything in life, so I pretty much quit music. I quit everything, like even basic like sleeping and eating type things. So no, music wasn't at the forefront really until I got home and started working on the book, and then I was really busy with the book, but I would write down like these song ideas, and then the book came out, which gave me finally time to sit down and really flesh out all the song ideas, and some of them are like pretty um, close to the time like right when I got out of the psych ward. So it's kind of cool to see, like, to finally have had the time to put them together and have, the book and the music that both tell this same story but in different ways.
So tell us briefly about your book. Your book is basically about is it your whole life story, or is it your realization that you had in the ward? What is your book about?
It's my whole life story, so it's a memoir. So it starts off with, my life as a blind person, both in Canada and Latin America, and then it talks about, this parallel theme of my anxiety and depression and battles with mental illness since I was very young, and how music helped with that. And then, yeah, eventually it does go into kind of this journal form of each day in the hospital. So, you know, um, it talks about, I don't know, it just really tries to strip away like the mystery of what's behind those locked doors, because I think it really freaks people out. They don't know what to expect, and I think the unknown creates more fear than is probably necessary, and it's probably, a hindrance to certain people to get the help that they need because they have this fear.
I love how you just said this right now. You said the unknown creates and I'm writing it down, unnecessary fears.
Yes.
So true.
Yes.
And what's the title of your book, Heather? And how can we find it? How can our audience find your book? How can we even find you? How can we find your music? We're gonna want to know. Trust me.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to know right now.
So my book's called Holding On by Letting Go. You can actually visit my website at www.heather-hutchison.com, Hutchison. And on there's links to my book. You can find it on Amazon, Apple Books, Audible, wherever you buy books, pretty much. It's available in print, ebook, and audiobook. As well, on that same website, you can find my music. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you listen to music. And if you're interested, I have a email list sign up form on my website. So if you want to know about when the new music is coming out, then you can check that out.
I think it'd be awesome to watch you live. Do you have any plans doing this? And thank you for all that information. Thanks so much for you spit that all out so easily.
I know. It's like
when
autopilot now.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, you know the stuff by heart. When or do you anticipate in performing anytime soon live?
Yeah, I'd like to. I think things, I don't know where you are, but things I think in Canada took a little bit longer to open up. So they're just kind of live music is coming back. So yeah, I'd like to get into that when the new album comes out and probably do some online shows as well, because I think that's something the pandemic really showed that those things can work.
You just gave me an idea, Heather. I would love to interview you again in the near future and have some live sessions. Maybe interview other singers and stuff. And would you
Yeah.
be willing to sing for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I promise not to forget the lyrics.
Oh, I forget all the time. I'm the same way. I forget my own show's name sometimes. I'm like, wait, a little more what? It's okay. No.
A little more something. I remember one time totally forgetting the lyrics to one of my songs, and I made up like the entire thing on the fly. I have no idea what I said. And
Nobody
this
even
lady
noticed, I
came
bet.
up to me after the show and she's like, "Oh my God, I loved that one song that you did. What album is that on?" So I told her and I'm thinking to myself, it's not the same song at all.
Oh my goodness. You made up a brand new song all on your own by without even wanting to.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't tell you what I said, but I guess it was impactful for her, but she might have been surprised when she actually listened to the CD because it was not at all the same.
It's awesome how that happens, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Heather, I'm curious, who are your favorite singers, singer-songwriters? Who do you look up to?
Oh, there's a lot. I
Is
realize
there
now.
are there anybody that you want to be like, or do you kind of just feel like I'm cool with having my own thing?
Um,
Or a little bit of both?
Probably a little bit of both. I always think it would be really interesting to like have a day in the body of like one of my favorite singers to actually know like what it feels like when they sing. I don't know. I think that'd be really cool.
It would be because I mean our bodies are their instruments. So
Yeah.
when you're singing, yet it's an actual instrument, it would be really interesting to be. I guess we could use Mariah Carey since you said her earlier
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be in her body and just be able to be so
Yeah, like
falsetto.
what
I
does that
can't.
feel like?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It must feel pretty magical.
You would think so. Yeah. Like I don't know. I think that would be like super cool to.
Do you mind me asking who your favorite singers are?
Um oh gosh, that's like a hard question. There's
How
so
about your
many
top
of them.
three?
Um like in all of my life, I know it sounds silly now, but in like Amy Lee from Evanescence was probably like my biggest influence ever because I kind of got into more serious songwriting around the time that I started listening to her.
Oh yeah, great
Right
group.
now I really
Amazing.
like Sarah Bareilles. City and Color is good. I'd have to like people ask me this and I totally like draw a blank. I'm like, oh, I have to look at my like Spotify list to see what
Because
I'm
there's so
listening to.
many, so much influence, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Like, how do you pick just a couple?
And what's your when you I mean, I'm curious too because I grew up with a really musical family, and I used to sing mariachi when I was a kid. I know it's totally different than what you're singing, but you mentioned Latin America. Do you mind if I ask about Latin America?
No, of course.
So, what about Latin America? So, Canada and Latin America. Can you tell me a little bit more about Latin America?
Yeah, so I lived in Peru for a while. And
What?
yeah.
My goodness, you're like, where's Waldo?
A little bit, yeah. And then
That's
every once in a
amazing.
while I'll go to like Mexico for like a month or something, but like not like a beach holiday, like actually go hang out with people like in Mexico City and stuff. I love Mexico City. It's so cool.
So what? Yeah, me too. I love Mexico, but why Peru and what took you to Latin America?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up as much as possible surrounded by like the Latin American community in Canada because there's this I don't know. So Canadians, they tend to have one of two responses to my blindness. Either they like studiously avoid it to the point where it's awkward, it's like this elephant in the room, or they try to pretend like they're totally cool with it by cracking jokes and everything, which I don't mind. I like a good blind joke as much as the next person, but I've heard them all a million times before. People
Yeah,
aren't
I
that
can imagine.
original. Um, but in Latin America, I don't know. I've always just found they have this like easy acceptance, I guess. They don't really ask a lot of questions of me, but they just observe a lot more and they kind of intuit what I might need and what I don't need and things like that. They just don't get weird about it. So I wanted to go to Latin America, to Peru, to be surrounded by that, to be different for a different reason, to be the girl from Canada instead of the blind girl.
Right. And do you have any Latin America in your culture, in your blood, in your DNA?
No, no.
Wow. So you're just basically going on based off your intuition and what feels right.
Yeah, totally.
That's amazing. And so you've gone more than once to Latin America.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like before the pandemic, I was going a couple, maybe 3 times a year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so what about the music over there? Did any of the Latin American type music inspire you?
Yeah, yeah, it was actually really cool. I wanted to record an album there. I haven't yet, but I hope that's something that I will do. I right before the pandemic, I was working with a Cuban producer, and we were working on some really cool stuff. So I hope that we can finish that project now that things are open back up again, because it's just something I've always wanted to do.
Wow. That's amazing. I love Cuban music. Love it,
Yeah,
and Cuban food, of course. But yeah, that's really incredible. Are you looking into also getting into percussions and stuff like that?
Um, I don't like, I feel, I don't know. That's probably like my weakest point
Uh-huh.
in music. But the producer I'm working with is like a really incredible percussionist, and
Percussionist.
it's
Yeah,
like
I can imagine if
watching
he's
it's
Cuban.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like
Right?
it's mind blowing to
It is
to
mind
watch
blowing.
them and listen to them, and like they are rhythm. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just in them.
It is. And then you just move automatically to the rhythm too. You're like, whoa, why am I moving?
Yeah, yeah. It's so innate for them.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's beautiful. It's like tribal almost.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And will you be, or have you learned Spanish?
Yes.
What, Heather? You're off the hook. Oh my goodness. What? Heather, how do you say Heather in Spanish?
Heather in Spanish?
Is it
Everyone
just,
says it wrong.
how do we do it? How do I say it?
Everyone always says like Heather.
How are we supposed to say it? Just regular Heather?
Yeah, pretty much.
Heather.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much like that. Or yeah, sometimes they get confused with the EA. I'm like, oh, I should just change
Heather.
my name. Nobody knows what to
Heather.
call me. Or like you say it to them 10 times and they don't get it.
That's pretty cute, actually.
It is really cute. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to read your book. Definitely. You say you also have it in audio?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So, everybody, this was Heather Hutchison, singer-songwriter, author, speaks Spanish, English from Canada. An amazing Heather Hutchison, everybody. These have been amazing, inspiring words to just keep going. If you start to feel down, depressed, know that that's not the end all, and that somebody else has it worse, and there's people suffering out there, and we have to think about what it's like for other people. And sometimes if we do that, when we put ourselves into other people's shoes, we can rise from that and know that we do inherently have some gifts. Isn't that correct? We're born with some gifts, right?
Absolutely.
Heather, thank you so much. You've been an amazing interview, and I can't wait to have you back singing for us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have anything else to share with our audience?
I think you brought up a really good point. I think, people don't need empty platitudes of like, oh, tomorrow's another day, cheer up, it'll be better. Because I know when I was going through it, that would be like about the time that I would stop listening to the person. But what I can say is that there will come a moment where you'll stop and you'll feel so much joy, so much profound joy in that moment, and you'll think to yourself, I would have missed this. So hang on for that moment because it is worth it.
That was the voice of an angel, and her name is Heather Hutchison. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
Man, I just feel so blessed to have met you. Thank you so, so very much, and I can't wait to interview you again.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.